hopefully we've sorted out our line to KZN there. And we chat now to Dr. Thabo Msibi, a senior lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, about life orientation teachers who are reluctant to address gay and lesbian issues in class. Thabo, can you hear me now? Hello?
I can hear you a bit, but I'm not, it's not sufficient.
All right, I'll try and shout these questions out at you and we'll try and get to them. Is this an issue that life orientation teachers should be addressing in class? Is it their problem to deal with?
Well, I think there is a problem to deal with. However, I just wanted to remove this issue away from life orientation teachers alone. Issues of same-sex sexuality and the teaching of same-sex sexuality should be issues of all teachers in schools, not just life orientation teachers. I think that's a first point to start off with. But it is, however, concerning that teachers who are meant to be teaching around these issues are actually scared to teach about it. But I must say that it is not surprising, given the context that South Africa is located in. If you look at South Africa, for instance, we know that there is a disconnect between what policy says in relation to same-sex issues and what actually happens in practice. We still find a lot of lesbian women who get raped by men who think that they can correct their sexuality. So this is a much broader issue which needs the attention of not just life orientation teachers, but of education specialists, of educators as a whole.
Now, a lot of these teachers who were interviewed for this article say they felt ill-equipped, they have other subjects to teach. How and when would they do this? Is that not an acceptable argument from them?
Certainly, it is an acceptable argument. In the research that we have conducted, for example, at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, we're finding the same sort of findings that Professor Francis and Dr. De Palma found, that a number of teachers are ill-equipped to teach about same-sex issues. And of course, life orientation is somehow trivialized in the schooling system. A number of teachers, for example, are not trained to teach about these issues in the higher education spaces. And of course, it is important to ask how many higher education specialists themselves are trained to teach about these issues so that they can teach the teachers who are going to go into the classroom to teach. So I think it's a big question which not only affects the education the Department of Education in terms of the basic schooling, but also higher education itself.
So Thabo, when they are dealing with homosexuality in schools, what would be their role? Are they there as counselor? Are they there to, to just be a shoulder to cry on instead of a parent? What exactly would be their role, and how do you keep it within that role?
Well, there are multiple roles to play, I suppose. I think the most important thing is that a number of teachers actually don't understand issues of same-sex desire, period. So there is a confusion, for example, between gender, sexuality, and sex. And a number of teachers mix those. I think as a basic level, it's important that teachers get the right information so that when they get into the classroom space, for example, if you in the article, one of the teachers says, well, if it comes up, I say to my learners, I'm going to go and research, and I hardly ever do the research. And this is primarily because teachers are not equipped to be able to speak or talk about the right information in class, to present accurate, factual information to the learners about what happens when one is gay, what happens when one is lesbian, the differences. And of course, also, I think it is part of the roles of a teacher to provide pastoral care, in the sense that teachers should be able to provide a crying shoulder to learners in schools. So of course, this is in addition to many other roles that they play. What is important, however, is that as the teachers are able to are playing that role, that there is that they feel that they are supported by the department and that they're able to execute their roles with exception. And
just very quickly for us, Thabo, in terms of the global fight against this type of discrimination, how would dealing with this in the classroom actually help? Where do you see this going in 20, 30 years' time if this is implemented in the classroom and it does happen?
Well, we must accept that everyone has a right to be what they wish to be. That I think that's a first premise to start off with. And I think a number of contexts throughout the world, gay and lesbian people are in fact sidelined, they're marginalized, or ostracized, and generally have negative experiences. I think it is important that the education system recognizes this, and of course also that we do not isolate issues of sexual orientation outside issues of racism, of sexism. That we must understand that these are all interconnected issues, and if we are going to address one, we should address all of them and the intersections that exist in between among them. And I think as a global approach, our understanding should be to try and ensure to it that every citizen of the world feels validated, every learner that goes into the classroom feels that they can be supported and that they will not be marginalized in any way.
Thank you very much. Thabo Msibi, Senior Lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal.
News that moves. eNCA.com.